The office lights buzzed above me, too bright, too white, and far too cold for the moment I was about to live through. There it was, a thin white envelope left perfectly aligned at the edge of the mahogany conference table. No handshake, no welcome, no warning. "Effective immediately," Robert said without looking up, "your title has been changed. Compensation adjusted accordingly." That was it. No explanation. No thank you. Just a 55% pay cut and a job title no one had ever heard of: Strategic Liaison. My hands stayed still on the table. My eyes didn't blink. Not because I was surprised, but because I knew, in my bones, that something colder than betrayal had just entered the room. Until 6 minutes ago, my business card read Nicole Vance, Senior Director of Aerospace Contracts, Holston Aerodyne. 15 years, 18 countries, 1 legacy deal, 5 long-range jets, $1.25 billion, signed last week. It should have been my moment. Champagne, cameras, maybe even a bonus. Instead, I was sitting across from a man I had once trusted, watching him avoid eye contact like I was already gone. In my briefcase, the contract I built. In his hand, a paper that deleted me, and not just from my job, from memory. You don't always hear the knife go in. Sometimes betrayal sounds like paper sliding across oak. I left the conference room without a word, not out of weakness, but because the fight hadn't begun yet. And when you're underestimated, silence is your sharpest weapon. Outside my office, or what used to be my office, the frosted glass nameplate was gone. Not replaced, not misspelled, just erased. 15 years. Vanished like spilled coffee on laminate. A junior intern passed me in the hall. "Can I help you find something?" She didn't even know who I was. I smiled tightly. "No, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." But that wasn't true. Where I was supposed to be, they had handed to someone else. I trained her during her internship. Bright, eager, but dangerously green. Lena Maxwell, 30 at most, was now sitting in the office I built with the title I earned. She wasn't the future. She was a placeholder with perfect posture. And Robert? The same man who once told me I was the anchor of Holston's international division? He shook Lena's hand that morning, laughing like he had nothing to lose. Because he didn't. He just sacrificed me, the woman who closed the biggest deal in company history, to make room for a rebrand. My new office was a cubicle. No window, no nameplate. Just a flickering light and a tangled phone cord left behind. The worst part? Across from me hung the freshly laminated company org chart. Nicole Vance? Nowhere. Lena Maxwell, center stage, Director of Global Strategy Initiatives. The tagline, "A bold new vision for Holston's future." I laughed silently, not because it was funny, but because it was surgical.
Holston didn't just demote me. They deleted me. Preemptively. Intentionally. A junior from marketing handed me a stack of folders. "These go to Lena for tomorrow's leadership summit," she chirped. I flipped one open. Slide title, "Contract Finalization, Munich Team." Subtitle, "Led by Nicole Vance." My photo was there, taken after the signing, champagne glass in hand. But it had been defaced, a red X across my face. On the next version, my face was gone entirely, replaced by Lena's. I stared at it like I was watching my own autopsy. let's step back. What happened to me isn't rare. In aerospace, tech, and finance, the higher women climb, the more invisible they become when it's time to credit results. They say things like, "You were too visible," or "Your leadership style doesn't fit our new direction." But what they mean is, "You made us uncomfortable by being indispensable." I wasn't just cut out, I was written out. 3 months earlier, over dinner in Paris, the client's COO, a stern German man named Berenger, leaned in and said, "We've been burned before. If you're not in charge post-signing, the deal's off." So I did what legal forgot to do. I added a clause. Quietly. Intentionally. Clause 47B. Operational oversight shall remain under Nicole Vance. Reassignment voids this agreement. Plain language. Sharp intent. They didn't read it. And now that clause, scrawled in my exhausted handwriting, was my final ace. In the bottom drawer of my cubicle, every binder had been relabeled. Where it once said NV, it now read LM. Lena's initials. On my work, on my blood, sweat, and strategy. But they missed one thing. That clause? It was embedded in the deal's legal spine. And when Lena boarded a plane to France thinking she had inherited my empire, she didn't know the lock was built with my name. Let me say this plainly. Too many companies mistake silence for submission. They celebrate the loud, promote the visible, and quietly discard the quiet grinders who hold everything together. Nicole's story is your story. If you've ever been asked to train your replacement, been overlooked because your loyalty wasn't loud enough, been told you're too essential to promote. Yes, that's a real line people hear. But what Nicole did next, the calm, the planning, the silence, is a masterclass in strategic power. Lena left for France on a Monday morning. New briefcase, new blazer, new role. Everything I had once earned, now borrowed. She boarded first class, passed through Dulles International like she owned the runway. I had hand-picked that exact travel kit 2 years ago. Back then, it was for high-level contract closings. Now, it was her costume. She smiled through boarding, but I smiled in silence because I knew something she didn't. The contract she was flying to execute, it wasn't hers to deliver. By 10:12 a.m. local time, Lena had arrived at the Eurova headquarters in Toulouse. She sent a selfie to HR, captioned, "Mission Jet Set," emoji. She didn't realize she had walked into a locked room with no key. At 4:30 p.m., Holster HQ in the U.S. received a brief but devastating email. Per Clause 47B, this contract is contingent upon post-deal transition being led by Ms. Nicole Vance. We do not recognize substitutes. No further meetings will be held. The board, legal, compliance, even Robert himself, they were all CC'd. No appeals, no footnotes, just silence. And then chaos. You can hear a company break before you see it. The elevators stop buzzing with chatter, Slack threads go quiet, executives start walking faster, but making less eye contact. A junior analyst passed my cubicle that evening, wide-eyed. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. Word was spreading. Clause 47B. Did Nicole really write that? Wait, it's enforceable? Lena flew all the way there for nothing? I didn't reply. I didn't even look up. Because when power works correctly,
It doesn't scream. It sits and waits. Holston's PR team tried to spin it. Someone drafted a press release calling it a strategic delay. That release never saw the light of day. By nightfall, the boardroom was locked, Robert's door shut, Lena's lights off. I was still in my cubicle, not working, just watching. No one offered me an apology. No one mentioned my name. But everyone felt my presence. Let's pause here. Clause 47B was more than smart language. It was proof that anticipating betrayal is the mark of mastery. Too often in business, we focus on flashy wins. Bonuses, awards, public recognition. But Nicole had learned true leverage lives in quiet protection. Here's the takeaway. If you lead a project, you better build a safeguard that binds the company to you, not out of paranoia, but out of respect for the work only you can deliver. By the next morning, I could hear the tension upstairs. Footsteps were too quick, voices too sharp. Legal locked themselves in. HR stopped smiling. No one acknowledged me.
But I could feel the temperature drop in real time. A colleague, one who owed me a favor, sent a text. Robert's blaming legal. It's not going well. That made me laugh, not with joy, but with precision. At 2:25 p.m., Yurava sent a second and final email. Subject: contract status. Body: due to unauthorized personnel changes in violation of Clause 47B, the agreement is null and void. All associated obligations are hereby dissolved. This notice is shared with all stakeholders and press teams. It wasn't just a corporate message. It was a scalpel to Holston's future. They had been exposed, and there was no scapegoat. That night, no one dared talk to me. I stayed late again, not from loyalty, but to watch an empire collapse without touching it. At 9:07 p.m., an accountant walked past and stopped. "You okay?" she asked, awkward but sincere. "Fine," I nodded. And I meant it, because I wasn't erased anymore. I was remembered, in the worst way possible, for them. At 9:15 a.m. the next day, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, Manhattan area code. Normally I'd ignore it, but I picked up. Nicole Vance? Speaking. Jonah Betrayal, Avanex. We spoke a few months ago. I remembered. They had made an offer. I had turned it down, out of loyalty. He continued. I'd like to revisit our conversation with a few upgrades. Jonah laid it out plainly. Double the base salary, equity stake, a personal office floor in their DC headquarters, freedom to build my own team, no ceiling, no mirrors, no ghosts. And one more thing. This wasn't just our idea, Jonah added. Beringer called us, said the deal failed because you weren't in it. He called you non-negotiable. That word sat with me, non-negotiable. After being treated like I didn't exist, I was now the only name that could move billion-dollar deals. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no. Instead, I made my terms. I choose my team. I approve every hire, especially post-deal integration. Done. And I want full lifecycle authority, from negotiation to renewal. You'll have it. I opened the drawer beside me and removed a folder. Inside, Beringer's handwritten note from Munich. To the one who earned our confidence through action, not title. This time, I wasn't chasing power. I was redefining how it looked. Too often we're told, speak up before it's too late. Don't let them walk all over you. Clap back, expose, go public. But there's another path. Strategic stillness.
Nicole didn't rage post on LinkedIn. She didn't email HR. She didn't cry in the restroom. She waited. Let them tie the noose with their own arrogance, then watch the floor fall out under them. Power isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the clause you wrote when no one was watching.
2 weeks later, I walked into a different boardroom. Midtown Manhattan. Tall windows slicing morning sun across a walnut table. Leather chairs, folded agendas. Silence before strategy. But this time, I wasn't invited. I was leading. Jonah sat to my right, Berenger to my left. Across the table, a new contract. Same jets, same billion-dollar weight. But now, the name on the front page read Nicole Vance, Executive Global Oversight, Avanex. I picked up the pen and signed without hesitation. Not out of revenge, out of restoration. Berenger had insisted all post-deal operations must remain under Nicole Vance. Substitution is not permitted. They weren't just protecting a deal, they were protecting memory. They had watched Holston gamble with arrogance, and now they were done taking risks on people who hadn't walked through fire. That clause, this time, had a name and teeth, and I had become the standard others would have to measure against. At 10:30 a.m., the press release went live. Avanex secures $1.125 billion deal with Urava. Former Holston executive leads new aerospace strategy. Within the hour, Reuters picked it up. Bloomberg reposted. LinkedIn lit up. At Holston, Lena froze mid-sentence during a leadership meeting. Robert saw the article in his private office. Neither had known. No leaks, no calls, just headlines. That's how restoration works. It doesn't knock, it replaces. There was no congratulatory message, no apology email, no olive branch. But there was a text from Lena. "Can we talk? I think I made a mistake." I looked at it once, and then I locked the screen. Some things don't need closure, especially when silence is already the answer. 3 months later, I stepped off the elevator into Avanex's new DC office. Marble floors, soft lighting, executive silence. In my blazer pocket, a card with my new title, Nicole Vance, Chief Global Officer. No more half walls, no more flickering lights, no more waiting to be seen. I passed a muted news feed in the lounge. Holston announces 200 job cuts after failed jet contract. CEO Robert Holston exits. I didn't feel joy. I felt air, lightness, the release of a weight that had never been mine to carry.
In the new boardroom, I took my seat at the head. In front of me, a $3.1 billion supply and service agreement, and at the bottom of the contract, a new clause, written in plain language, my language. All operational phases, from negotiation to renewal, shall remain under the direct authority of Nicole Vance. No substitutes. This time, I wasn't protecting myself from being erased. I was embedding myself into the system. Legacy isn't about ego. It's about structure, permanent, untouched. Let me be honest. This wasn't about pay cuts or titles. It was about identity. When they erased my name, they underestimated the ink I had already bled into everything. Betrayal isn't always a door slammed shut. Sometimes it's a quiet reshuffling of seating charts. And sometimes it's a red X on your photo. But what they didn't realize is this. I didn't just write contracts. I wrote conditions. They replaced my body in the building, but not my weight in the market. If you've ever been replaced by someone who read your playbook, trained a person who later sat in your seat, been told this isn't personal, it's structural, then you know this isn't just my story, it's a systemic blueprint. Invisibility is often strategic. So is patience. So is walking out with a plan instead of a post. The most dangerous people aren't loud. They're the ones you forgot to check before pulling the trigger. If you're in a cubicle right now wondering if your silence makes you weak, it doesn't. If they erased your name, rewrite your future with it in bold. And if they told you someone else could do your job better, write the clause that proves them wrong, quietly, permanently, unapologetically. You don't have to shout to win. You just have to sign everything they forgot to read. Starting over doesn't always feel like victory. Even when the paycheck doubles, even when your name is on the door. Some wounds don't scream. They hum, quietly, beneath every morning meeting. But I wasn't here to nurse scars. I was here to build. The first thing I did? Dismantle the old blueprint. No ego seats, no titles for the sake of optics, no strategic liaisons. Every leader under me had to prove one thing. They knew how to protect the deal, not just present it. Because I'd lived what happens when you hand power to the wrong name. One afternoon, someone asked if we should recycle Holston's old workflow templates. I laughed. Only if we want to repeat their collapse. I instituted a rule. No unsigned clause goes forward. Every contributor gets attribution. No edits without acknowledgement. And quietly, one red pen was kept on my desk. Not for marking others, but to remember the time someone used it to cross out my face. Legacy isn't about forgetting where you came from. It's about making sure you never go back blind. 3 months after our announcement, Robert resigned from Holston. It wasn't formal. It wasn't graceful. It was quiet. Just a short memo and a cleaned-out office by Monday. No headlines, no legacy. Just another executive who underestimated the wrong person. I heard, unofficially, he tried to pitch a new startup idea to investors, but the phrase, Clause 47B, followed him like a shadow. Some ghosts don't haunt you. They blacklist you. Lena resurfaced 6 months later on a podcast for young executives. She spoke vaguely about lessons in humility and recognizing timing errors. I didn't need to listen. She had learned something I already knew. When you skip the struggle, you inherit a crown with no weight. The comments were mixed. Some praised her growth, others called her a symbol of privilege. She reached out one last time. I'm building something new. Would love your insight. I never replied. Not because I was bitter, but because I had already given her insight. 2 years ago, when I trained her. A junior associate once asked me, "Why didn't you say something? Why didn't you post about what they did?" I smiled and answered honestly, because if I had to scream to be heard, I was talking to the wrong room. The truth is, silence is misread. It's mistaken for weakness, or guilt, or fear. But the people who carry the most power, they don't announce the storm. They become it. My new team at Avenex wasn't hired from resumes.
They came from scars. A woman fired after exposing embezzlement. A man who rebuilt 3 failing divisions but was passed over for promotion every time. An engineer told he wasn't client-friendly because he didn't smile through microaggressions. Together, we didn't build a company. We built a counterweight to every place that rewards appearances over outcomes. A year after the France fallout, Urava reached out again. Another deal. This one, $3.1 billion across 9 years. Aircraft, tech, support, global rollout. I was invited not just to negotiate, but to architect the entire contract. We flew to Copenhagen, met in a glass tower overlooking the harbor. At the end of the table, Beringer smiled slightly and said, Same terms as before, with one addition. Nicole oversees it all, or no deal. I nodded once, then passed him a final clause already drafted. Simple, plain, powerful. This contract shall be void if Nicole Vance is removed, reassigned, or minimized in any capacity, including public-facing credit. It passed unanimously. No red X's, no erasures, no substitutes. You know what they say. You either leave quietly or you're forced out loudly. But there's a third way. You stay so quiet that when they realize what you built, it's already too late to replace you. I didn't need Robert's apology, or Lena's podcast, or Holston's recognition. I had something better. A full pipeline of global clients, a loyal team who knew what it meant to be overlooked, and the ability to sign futures instead of begging for relevance. If you're watching this and thinking, that's me right now, I've been erased, then let me tell you something no HR department ever will. Sometimes, silence is the cleanest ink. It forces people to fill in your absence. And when they fail, your impact becomes undeniable. You don't need to burn the building down. Just make sure your clause is in the foundation. And when it collapses, you'll be standing outside, blueprint in hand, ready to build the next one.
12 months after signing the Urava deal with Avanex, I stood in front of a different kind of room. No skyline, no walnut table, just 40 chairs, one whiteboard, and the next generation of aerospace leaders. Interns, analysts, entry-level staff, all sitting with quiet attention. Some reminded me of myself 20 years ago. Some reminded me of Lena. "What's the one thing no one teaches you about power?" I asked. A hand shot up. "That it can be taken from you overnight?" I smiled. "No, that's what they want you to believe. The truth is, real power can't be taken, only misplaced. And if you build it right, it always finds its way back." They took notes like every word was a blueprint, because it was. Clause 47B didn't just echo inside Holston, it rippled outward. Within 6 months, 3 major clients rewrote their vendor agreements to include named leadership clauses. By the end of the fiscal year, 6 aerospace competitors added mandatory contributor attribution policies. Behringer told me privately, "They're calling it the Nicole principle." "That's overkill," I replied. "It's overdue," he answered. "We've lost too many deals to arrogance disguised as succession planning." It came in a thin envelope. No return address, but I knew the logo. Inside, a letter from Holston's board chair. "Dear Miss Vance, we acknowledge the crucial role you played in shaping Holston's most significant deal to date. Though circumstances unfolded regrettably, we would be remiss not to express our respect for your contributions. We hope our paths may someday align again. Respectfully, the Holston Board of Directors." I didn't frame it. I didn't burn it. I just folded it in half and placed it behind Behringer's original handwritten note. Because acknowledgement means nothing if it arrives after the opportunity to act with integrity. I saw her once, at a conference in London. She was standing by the complimentary coffee cart, looking over her shoulder like someone unsure if they belonged. She spotted me, smiled faintly, didn't approach. That was enough. Her mistake wasn't ambition. It was underestimating the cost of skipping steps, of inheriting power without carrying its weight. A title is just a key, but if you don't understand the locks it opens, you lose everything the moment it clicks. At Avanex, I built a team based on one rule. We protect each other's name in every deal. If someone contributed, their initials are on it. If someone led, their name is etched in the oversight clause. If someone got sick, the client knew why the transition was temporary and who trained the backup. No more disappearing acts, no more faceless handovers. And when investors asked why our post-deal retention rate was the highest in the sector, I gave them one word: trust. Not forced, not performative, earned, protected, sealed in ink.
People ask me what legacy feels like. It doesn't feel like awards or interviews or headlines. It feels like walking into a meeting and seeing your old intern briefing a foreign minister with confidence and clarity. It feels like knowing that if you disappeared tomorrow, your systems wouldn't collapse. They'd adapt. Because you built something beyond ego. You built frameworks, not fame, function. So if you've made it this far, if you're still here, quietly reading, maybe sipping lukewarm coffee in an office where your nameplate is too small, this is the clause I wrote for you. In the event of professional disregard, personal erasure, or strategic dismissal, the bearer of this story retains all rights to rebuild, reclaim, and redefine their value in full. No substitution permitted. No silence mistaken for surrender. Print it. Frame it. Carry it in your heart like ink on contract paper. Because this world will forget you if you let it. Or you can do what I did. Build something they can't replace. The final scene didn't happen in a boardroom. It happened in an elevator. Friday evening, Avenex HQ. I was heading down with a colleague, a recent hire from Halston, ironically, when the doors slid open on the 9th floor. Robert stood there. His eyes met mine for half a second. He didn't get on. He didn't speak. The doors slid shut. My colleague raised an eyebrow. Was that? I nodded. It was. And in that moment, I felt nothing but stillness. Not triumph, not smugness. Just proof. That time makes all echoes fade, except the ones you write in stone. If you've ever been replaced, minimized, or erased, don't rage, don't beg, don't burn it all down. Instead, learn, document, write your clause. And when the time comes, sign everything they forgot to read. Because in a world that bets on your silence, the greatest revenge is being the one name they can't move forward without.
If you've ever been replaced, if you've ever been pushed aside right after delivering your biggest win, then this story isn't just mine. It's yours too. Don't let other people's silence make you doubt your worth. You don't have to shout to be heard. You don't have to fight dirty to rise. You just have to rewrite the terms with action, with clarity, and with your signature at the right time. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment. Have you ever been underestimated, erased, replaced by someone who walked an easier path than you? I and everyone watching would love to hear your story. Tap like if this gave you strength. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next story, because maybe the next video is exactly what you need to hear. And remember, you don't need permission to matter. You just need to stop letting others define your value.